I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
With me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes, Life After the Military with Cary Harrison.
Harrison with you, your new best friend. We want to welcome you to Rethinking Heroes and welcome to the 10 different online streaming platforms as we expand the giant footprint of KPFK and Los Angeles Public Radio to, well, pretty much anything with a chip and a signal. Don't forget, you never have to leave the show because you're leaving your car during drive time, which it is right now. So when you get out of the car, grab your phone and enjoy it as streaming video, which you can pick up simply by going to rethinkingheroes.com. Well, today we're going to give a little love to KPFK, but not at the expense of great information. Doing both is, well, it goes beautifully hand in glove. Well, let's start with the fact that we all just learned that Meta, formerly known as Facebook, has laid the foundation for the next future, taking the old Facebook and evolving it through AI into a, quote, synthetic social network. Now, what do we mean by synthetic? Well, for Meta, introduced chatbots styled after celebrities like Kendall Jenner, Mr. Beast, and Snoop Dogg. Now, I know some of our listeners are like, what does that even mean? It doesn't really matter. Just know the bizarre is becoming real, but it never was real to begin with. And although it was a mix of peculiar and uncharted territory, that would be creating celebrities and allowing fake versions of celebrities to appeal to Facebook viewers. In other words, you don't know the difference. And so suddenly there's going to be a cumulative population, or as we call it in radio broadcasting and TV, cume, C-U-M-E. It increases the cume. The more the cume, the more you can charge for advertising, tricking people. So this is the, what's being called, well, it's their word, not mine. So I love it. Synthetic social network, as if it weren't to begin with. And I'll give you a little backstory in my interview with Mark Zuckerberg years ago when he was doing public interviews. So these bots never quite caught on when they tried this initially. And according to a recent New York Times article, Meta plans to push this envelope further. They're offering creators a chance to engage with their fans through chatbots mimicking their own speech patterns. Now, most communications would be automated and initially disclosed. And when I say initially disclosed as AI generated, just initially, after once, tiny little boop, gone. Now you're not going to know. And if your friend joins you, they're not going to know. And initially, you might think people would resist artificial interactions. Yet, the success of platforms like Character.ai and Replica with a K, along with the emergence of phenomena like Shrimp Jesus. I know it just sounds like I'm speaking gobbledygook here, but this is the real world out there, not like the radio you're listening to. This is what's out there right now, and this is how they're hooking people. These things like Replica and Shrimp Jesus suggest a growing appetite for synthetic chats, fake chats, and media. Hell, Facebook allowed you to have 1,000 acquaintances repeatedly referred to as friends, when many people couldn't even successfully get one real friend made of flesh and blood. So now the person in the grocery store in line in front of you is your friend because friendship has lost its meaning and significance due to social media. I'm not hammering on social media. I'm hammering on abusing it, using it as Joseph Goebbels would use it. So let's take a step back to see the bigger picture. Facebook first connected us with friends and family, then influenced by TikTok, it pivoted toward content from creators we don't personally know. Today, we're glimpsing at a future where our interactions blend seamlessly with both humans and fake bots, sometimes without even distinguishing between the two. The conversation about the internet's future has been dominated lately by concerns over AI-generated text flooding the web, even the political future of this country. You've heard about it. It doesn't matter who or what you watch, they're talking about it because it's that real. As for what comes next, well, that remains an intriguing mystery waiting to be unraveled. I believe we do have a guest upcoming. We're just waiting to get them on board. Meanwhile, I'm going to tell you very quickly about my interaction with Mark Zuckerberg once upon a time. So this is going back to about 2008, and I was on Air America, which you probably remember, in Los Angeles. It was AM 1150, and it was a Clear Channel station. And we had Al Franken on in the morning. This is where we were grooming Rachel Maddow, who Keith Olbermann really liked at MSNBC. I was doing weeknights and sometimes weekends too, and sometimes afternoons. You know, it was Air America. What are you going to do? And we were flying around the network and having a good time. So Mark Zuckerberg had this idea of Facebook, and we were just hearing about it. But nobody'd heard of this guy yet, and you and me were still on MySpace. Now, talk about going back in time. MySpace. It looked like a bad website, like the worst website that ever existed, but it was all we had. Before then, if you remember, we were all on AOL. AOL, that was it. You put in a CD-ROM, you loaded AOL, it dialed up, using basically what sounds like a fax machine, connected. They charged you $20 a month just to connect. And then they controlled your entire life, all your chats. If you wanted to buy flowers, you bought it through there. If you wanted to do anything, it was through AOL. And if you left AOL onto the internet, you got a black C prompt and a black screen, because there wasn't the internet. Everyone didn't have websites yet. Flash forward by 2008, a lot of people had rudimentary websites, and MySpace was where communally we all gathered, shared dumb photos that we had taken and all of that. It was sort of the beginning of narcissism, but people were still not writing about what they'd had for lunch. They were trying to be a little deeper. Well, in comes Facebook, in comes Zuckerberg. And I get him on, and this is fascinating to me because I had understood the backstory of what he had done at Harvard, and really it was a private chat area for people that were students in Ivy League schools, and they were able to talk about homework, share notes, lie, cheat, steal, hook up, whatever people might do. But they realized that this thing could go bigly if it went out nationally and then someday globally. So he's on there talking about it. And I said, so what's really the point? We have MySpace, we have AOL chat, we have Skype, we have all of these other ways where people can connect. You must have a plan here. And he was filled with delicious hubris. And that's the beauty. When you can get them relaxed and get them to just decide that they're in a safe territory, the water is safe. This is like it's 7 p.m. He's all comfortable. And he says, well, really what we're going to do is replicate the AOL model, but it's going to be better. I'm like, okay, I remember the AOL model. He said it's the same thing. With AOL, you couldn't leave AOL. You could only use AOL. And by telling people who normally could never have any real friends in their lives, they have no personalities, they're not fun, they're not attractive, they get to put up the picture that they want, not the picture that's real. They can use Photoshop or whatever they need to do, put up that picture, and that is them. And then they can tell whatever story they want about themselves, right out of their soul, all the things they really wish they were, but they are not. Because remember, the dating apps had just come out and a lot of people were fudging that. He knew it. So he was encouraging people to invent a version of themselves and put it out in public. And then anybody that clicked on it became their friend automatically. Imagine if you're a person with no friends, a friendless person. Now, most live humans get 3, 4, 5 normal people, like high functioning people get 3 or 4 or 5 friends. That's about what you're supposed to have. You can have 1,000 acquaintances, but real friends that you can trust and share your soul with. It is 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe in a lifetime. With this, anything that moves, that blinks, that twitches, that eats a hamburger occasionally is now your friend. So now you have 1,000 friends. Imagine your ego soaring. This is what he was saying. And once you get addicted to this, once you have thousands of friends, you now have a commitment to your thousands of friends. They want to hear stuff from you. You want to hear from them. You get sucked in addictively into this algorithm that constantly monitors you and starts to figure out, and they hadn't done this yet, we're going to start to figure out what you like and what you don't like. Then we're going to feed you only what you like. So not only are your thousands of friends needing to hear from you because they're pinging you, they're talking to you, and they're putting up pictures of their dog and their lunch and their dinner and their toilet and their this and their that, but you have to do the same back to them, and we have figured out what you like and don't like. Then this was the creepiest. He said, we're going to redefine democracy. Okay, now I'm fascinated. We're going to redefine democracy. Democracy actually has been defined going back to the ancient Greeks, which practiced a very pure form. Number 2 in the world would probably be the Swiss, where they still do national plebiscites. And the whole population will vote for something, yes or no, done. So redefining democracy in America just frightens the hell out of me, since we're having a tough time getting to what the founders had initially intended, even the spirit of it. He said, oh no, it's simple. And some of you will remember this from early Facebook or just having been on Facebook for any time. They would put up polls, fake polls, like, do you like, what is your favorite episode of the Beverly Hillbillies? Now, it seems very innocuous, but you remember there were years of these ridiculously stupid, banal questions. And these were polls, and people would answer them. Well, they were data mining. They figured out who and what you like, how much you're willing to spend, what your spending capability is. They knew your IP, they knew your zip code, they knew all of it. Now they want to find out, what do you like, what do you not like? And then the algorithms were able to build themselves and speak to your passions and your heart, your needs and your wants, and fulfill them with all of your fake friends. So he admitted that. He said, and then you won't be able to leave. We'll be able to sell everything you want through Facebook, and you won't be able to leave. Happily, we have been able to leave. But we now have the synthetic version that was just announced, and now they're going to use all kinds of fakery. So, happily, with us right now is Ed Watal, founder and principal of Intellibus, a top 100 software firm. He regularly serves as a board advisor to the world's largest financial institutions, with C-level executives relying on him for IT strategy and architecture. One of Ed Watal's key projects includes Big Parser, which is an ethical AI platform. He's worked on the inside at RBS, at Deutsche Bank. Well, there's a stand-up bank for you, and Citigroup, another one too. But he's the author of numerous articles and one of the defining books on cloud fundamentals called Cloud Basics. So he has earned his chops. He has served as a lecturer from universities globally, including NYU and Stanford, and has been featured across legacy media. Ed Watal, I want to welcome you to Rethinking Heroes.
Well, thank you, Cary, for having me here. Appreciate it.
And I hope I have not bungled your last name, but I'm guessing. Am I close?
I've been called a lot of things, but you're just fine.
I've been called a lot of things too, so we're starting as equals here. Ed, I spoke a moment ago about celebrity deep fakes, which are drawing people simply so they can be closer to imagined power and prestige. Meanwhile, less obvious scams and manipulations are becoming more prevalent. Could you elaborate on how AI-powered deep fakes can be exploited for fraudulent activities and the dangers they present to all of us?
Yeah, no, I think deepfakes is a problem right now. Of course, the deepfakes that are done through imagery are pretty easy sometimes to find out, because human brain is wired to look for such signals. Through billions of years of evolution, the brain can sort of instinctively tell that, and often we have intuition that guides us when we look at a picture that looks fake. I mean, we see so much social media. But when it comes to software, things like, for example, supply chain attacks, open source repositories being contributed by malicious actors. The whole world uses open source. And imagine someone putting in malicious open source. You would innocuously, when we are in, I've been in software engineering for a long time. When you download open source, you have this faith and trust that it is open and it's good. You don't think twice. You just take it and you use it, because that's the whole point of open source, right? We're doing good for society. So we don't think of it as malicious. Now that has become
I'm just going to jump in, Ed, to help define, because it's radio and some people tend to be a little older, so they haven't been sitting around doing the internet the way you have, the way I have. Open source means that if I'm like pretty good at understanding the internet, I can even write some code. I can like push software beyond the known limits that it had. I would have access to be able to do that because it's open source.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. Very articulate, Cary, over there. Essentially, open source is the idea that people can share software that they have written with other people, and so everybody doesn't have to do the same work over and over, and it's free, it's license free, it's copyright free. So so large businesses and even small businesses which can't afford to write a lot of software generally tend to just use that because it's free and it's easy to use. But then that becomes an attack vector. Last month, there was an attack, where preview versions of Linux. Now, just for those who don't know Linux, it's an operating system. If people at home use Windows, we know what an operating system is. Linux is an operating system used by businesses because, you have to run hundreds of servers and it's expensive. And it's a free operating system. And so then that's become an attack vector. And, someone, foreign actor by the name of Jia Tan, it's an anonymous fake. That was something that came out. Without getting into the technical minutiae, that's an attack vector, and more of that is likely to happen. Well, I could go on, but I'll let you drive this conversation.
I appreciate it. And I also appreciate the fact you're using a microphone, which meant you followed directions, which means I like you twice as much right now. We're talking to Ed Watal. He's an expert in cybersecurity, founder and principal of Intellibus, top 100 software firm, board advisor to the world's largest financial institutions, looking today to have more ethical AI platforms. He's been on the inside of RBS, Deutsche Bank, and Citigroup, author of the defining book on cloud fundamentals and lectures for universities, including New York University and Stanford. We've all heard the term phishing. Let me spell that now, because we're not talking about Uncle Ned on a boat on a lake. It is Phishing, phishing with a PH. What is that? Half of us know, the other half do not. AI-powered phishing. Okay, phishing is where I pretend maybe I'm going to sell you a service and I get your personal information, like maybe your social security number, your credit card, your address, your age, your shoe size, whatever. And then I say, and I'm going to send you the blah, blah, blah. And then I just walk away with your data, steal your credit cards, and have a great day. That would be the worst case form of phishing. But now AI powering that kind of phishing to draw stuff out of people, that's a concerning issue. How could AI be used by hackers to personalize phishing scams? And what risks do you think, Ed Watal, it poses to individuals and organizations?
I think AI has just upped the ante for human evolution. Let me elaborate. Humans are very good at finding liars, but we get lied to all the time. And media and marketing, and I'm no offense to media and marketing, is the art is how do you convince the consumer? And so you sort of are fishing for the right ideas for the human's mind. Now, maybe I'm using the fishing with the F here. So obviously, when the email world, that's how phishing came about. The idea was, you'd send somebody an innocuous-looking email saying, "Oh, your bank account password needs to be reset." Someone would go click the link unwittingly, thinking, "Oh, something's wrong." And then they would get trapped in and they would end up entering their password. That's one simple example. But you could have more complicated things where people would be asked to send money, and etc. So now, over the years, humans got used to this. It's like we get used to clickbait, and then we know, okay, that's clickbait, and we kind of understand. So why did we get used to it? Because the people who were trying to send these messages had a certain way of sending these messages. You kind of understood the pattern. So the brain's good at pattern recognition. At some point, we understand, okay, that looks like a phishing email. The subject looks fishy, so to speak. But now what is happening with AI? AI can now create human-like messages. So now that means you could use, as a hacker, as a phisher, bad actors can use an LLM to improve better grammar. Earlier, probably phishing was happening from some person who's in an underprivileged country, doesn't have enough money, but understands technology and is trying to do this. Now that person just suddenly has, the same language capability that someone sitting here in America or any other country has. So now obviously they've upped the game. Spelling mistakes won't be there, idiosyncrasies won't be there. It'll sound very native. It'll sound like this guy watches, the same football game that you do. So you're more likely to be phished, if you will.
Your expertise, Ed Watal, for regular people who may not be up to speed on 2001's HAL or Skynet, which we all lovingly remember from Terminator, all of this sort of unfolding in its own way, recent AI use of drones in the Middle East, the self-evolving internet is really what AI is, self-evolving, becoming potentially self-aware. Knowing about that is invaluable today for all of us. Maybe you could give us a glimpse into what your ethical AI platform entails and its significance in today's technological landscape.
So, first off, thank you for asking that question, because it's very near and dear to my heart. I've devoted at least 10 years of my life with a community of thousands of people trying to, get the world steered towards ethical AI. Now, what do I mean by that? Today, as we all know, the current AI, the way it has been done, we have taken the data from the internet, which is kind of called scraping the data. And when you take somebody else's information from their website without their permission, I think it is not hard for anyone to imagine that was possibly be unethical, unless their website clearly said that information is okay for you to use for whatever purpose. Most websites have a terms and service agreement on the website, which implies if you take information from my website, just because it's public, so the nuance there, and I'll throw a buzzword here for people to sort of think about: publicly available information versus public domain information. If I put something on a website, it's publicly available, meaning anyone can see it, anyone can browse it. Doesn't mean it is public domain. Public domain means it's copyright free, meaning you can do as you please. So in an ethical AI world, to the question that you asked, it would be important that anyone who's taking information, feeding it to an AI and training it from your website, is doing it ethically, as in respecting the terms of service of your website. If it is public domain, then it's fine. If it's simply publicly available, not public domain, they need to explicitly take your permission to do that. So that's the premise. And of course, I can elaborate further if you'd like on, what specifically what we've been doing and what is the vision we see for the future.
I'm going to invite you back on, Ed, down the road to just sort of break out what happens when AI breaks out. And I mean like bad pimples, breaks out, self-aware, gets hungry and decides it really wants to eat, because we know that day is coming. This is why you have ethical AI, to limit its appetites. But if its appetites weren't predicted to be so large, you wouldn't have to limit them. So I'd like to have a longer conversation about that. But today you have helped us so much. And I want to thank you for joining us on Rethinking Heroes.
Oh, thank you so much, Cary. It's been a pleasure, and I'd definitely love to be back and have a deeper conversation, because that does deserve a deeper conversation.
It really does. And I love this stuff. I could go on for hours and put everyone in a coma. So we'll keep it tight and smart like we did today. I appreciate you very much. Ed Watal, founder and principal of Intellibus, a top 100 software firm, board advisor of the world's largest financial institutions. Today, we've been talking about ethical AI platforms and the necessity for them. AI, in case you don't know, artificial intelligence. I should have said that earlier. It's assumed we all know what we're talking about, but we don't all live online, do we? Thank God we're on the radio, a lot of us. And good news about radio coming up in just a minute. Ed's been on the inside of RBS, Deutsche Bank, Citigroup, author of the defining book on cloud fundamentals and lectures for universities, including NYU and Stanford. Coming up, have you ever heard of Project 25? Well, probably not, and that's because it has been hidden from your eyes. Project 25, and it's a biggie. Imagine a shadow network combining business and government, looking to remove the last protective guardrails from the law and the government you rely on. Well, it's next.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
At the Veterans Health Administration, we provide life-changing care to over 9 million veterans across more than 1,200 facilities nationwide.
Our hands are busy, competent, skilled, healing, helping, and friendly. A place where diverse teams come together hand in hand to provide full patient-centered care, and where even robots lend a hand.
Join hands with us. Learn more at vacareers.va.gov.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
How you holding up? Nothing wrong with getting help.
If I promise to look into it, will you drop it and help me build this fence?
Now you need my help.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-218-8999. That's 877-218-8999.
We are in complete control. We are Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Is Rethinking Heroes, RethinkingHeroes.com. Cary Harrison with you. Don't forget, you never have to leave the show because you're leaving your car during drive time. We're live streaming as video, which you could pick up your phone simply. Turn it on. It's already on because whoever ever turned their phone off in the last 10 years. And just go to RethinkingHeroes.com and catch the live video stream. Well, next we're going to explore what can only be thought of as creepy and simply un-American. What am I talking about? It's called Project 2025, a fascinating policy blueprint crafted by bail and switch propaganda-rich extraction entities like the Heritage Foundation, which you're familiar with, and Koch Industries, which you wipe your fanny with, by the way, quite literally. They make all the toilet paper that most of us use. That would be the Charles and David Koch, formerly one of them. They're now the Koch brother, singular. Thanks to the global project against hate and extremism, we now have weekly updates on this extensive plan, hell-bent on shaping the future of our nation. If they take Congress and remove guardrails from the courts, they have a concrete action plan for dismantling each agency, many agencies, that none other than the great Richard Milhouse Nixon. Well, he was great. Ask him. He created these things so that there'd be some positive afterglow in the wake of his gnarled presidency. Even those go bye-bye. Joining us now is the esteemed Ann Nelson, author of Shadow Network and prominent figure in the realm of international affairs, of media, of human rights. She won journalism's Livingston Award and has served as the director of the Committee to Project Journalists, created the first curriculum in human rights reporting for Columbia University as a graduate of Yale, a Guggenheim Fellow, Bellagio Fellow, and a member of the New York Institute for the Humanities and the Council on Foreign Relations. Wow, I'm in love. Ann Nelson, it is a pleasure to have you with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're glad, so glad to have you here today, a voice of reason amidst the murky chaos of the future. Your book, Shadow Network, shines a light on the secretive network of fundamentalists, of oil barons and other soul suckers who have waged a 40-year campaign to take over Washington, including the National Rifle Association, the Federalist Society, Family Research Council, and you point out that its members cut a deal with Donald Trump, who's been materially advancing their agendas from the White House. What a good spot from which to advance materially their agenda. Your impeccable investigations describe their media platforms, their digital campaign strategies, many of which we were just talking about before with our former guests, and their chilling plans for America's collapse as they dismantle public health, public education, and the public interest, which includes clean water, clean air, and maybe a half-decent education. Past and present members include the We Built the Wall mastermind, Steve Bannon, and National Rifle Association embezzler, Wayne LaPierre. So it is a panoply of superheroes that just keep on giving. Ann Nelson, how would you describe the significance of Project 2025 and its potential impact on this, our remaining society?
Well, what people understand is that these are the organizations networked under an umbrella group called the Council for National Policy that really wrote the agenda for Donald Trump in 2016, and in fact, literally wrote passages of the Republican Party platform. So 2016 was an experimental era where they tried to implement in an amateurish way a lot of their policies. If Trump won in 2024, as you said, there would be no guardrails, and a lot of these truly damaging policies could be implemented, some of them very quickly.
We're talking right now to Ann Nelson. Ann, I think your audio is a little muddy for some reason. If you could use your bar voice. Maybe you've been in a bar once before. Yeah, there you go. Use your bar voice. That way our radio listeners can hear you. Watching on video at rethinkingheroes.com, we can lip read, but just bellow it out the way I do. Let's talk a little bit about the sponsors behind the plan and their motivations, particularly concerning issues on racism, white supremacy, and LGBTQ LMNOP, my people.
Yeah, well, one of the things that you really have to focus on is that Project 20 is going to serve as a de facto Republican Party platform because the organizations that have signed on to it and have created it have taken over the traditional Republican Party. They are the radical right. They're running the show now. There are some divisions within them, but there's basically a unified front on three critical areas. One is destroying all of the environmental progress in terms of policies that has been made. Another is, continuing Trump's tax policies, which means concentrating wealth ever more in the top 1% and stiffing the bottom 50%. And the third, religious fundamentalists by having what they call family policies that are anti-women, anti-LGBT, roll back civil and political rights that we fought for the last 80 years.
And I'm going to ask you if you could, I don't know where your mic is located, and I'm sorry to be fussy like this, but if you could, is there a way to pull it toward you or to lean closer to you?
Is that better?
Might be. Is your mic in your earbuds or is it in front of you somewhere?
Yes.
Oh, it's in your earbuds.
In my earbuds.
Okay, well, then
I'll do my best.
There you go. Point them. That's it. They look like earrings now. They look fabulous. You can see her at rethinkingheroes.com. We're talking to Ann Nelson. Ann Nelson is really quite a rock star, author of Shadow Network, winner of journalism's Livingston Award, served as director of the Committee to Project Journalists, created the first curriculum in human rights.
Journalists?
Yes.
Committee to protect journalists?
Yes.
Yes.
Director of the Committee to Protect Journalists, created the first curriculum in human rights, reporting for Columbia University, a graduate of Yale, Guggenheim Fellow, Bellagio Fellow, member of the New York Institute for the Humanities and Council on Foreign Relations. And if you don't think women should run the world, you're simply not paying attention to today's show. And can you talk about the involvement of the fossil fuel industry influence on the environmental regulations proposed in Project 2025?
Sure. Project 2025 is something that I've written about in the Washington Spectator. And when you look at the 100 organizations that are behind it, signing on as official supporters, you'll find that something like half of them get funding from the Koch network. Now, this is, as you say, the Koch organization that has promoted climate denial. It has sought to reverse environmental regulations. In fact, what they want to do close down the entire Environmental Protection Agency and withdraw the United States from the Paris Climate Accords and every other international climate agreement. So they want, and the other part of the Project 2025 agenda is to remove emission controls. They don't want to take out energy ratings from your refrigerator. The idea is just to burn as many fossil fuels as quickly as possible in order to promote their profits.
China has just announced that they recognize that they are sinking giant amounts, 10 million or 100 million people in China in various different places are actually sinking into the soil. This is all due to not only the weight of everything there, but climate change is real. If you go to places like Switzerland, where part of their tourism is based on skiing, obviously, 4 giant ski resorts are now hiking resorts. Why? Because the glaciers have retreated 5 miles. Now, I know the Koch brothers would tell you in the fossil fuel industry that there's no such thing as climate change, that the earth just naturally does this. It might naturally do whatever it naturally does, including wipe out the dinosaurs in human life. But we know empirically that this is co-participated by mankind blowing a lot of stuff up in the air, whether it could be geoengineering too. We know absolutely, specifically, beyond a shadow of a doubt. That's real too. And that was supposed to be the cure to climate change, is putting particles up in the atmosphere to block the sun's light from coming down. But it turned out those same particles trapped the sun's light, which meant trapped the heat and caused the glaciers to melt even more, which is now a giant profit center because chunks of what used to be frozen material in the North Pole are now separated and ships can pass through, which saves corporations lots of money. So just look out your own window. Look at your Category 6 hurricane that has yet to be invented, but now they're talking about it. This stuff never happened 10 years ago. So it's not just Earth suddenly having a heart attack on its own because it doesn't, it's just full of vagaries and whims. We're going to get back to Ann in a second. I don't know if Ann, how are you feeling?
I'm here.
Oh, now you sound good.
Okay, I'm here.
You rock. Let's talk a little bit about European countries and regions like Latin America that are experiencing the effects of Project 2025, especially in terms of LGBTQ rights and religious freedom.
Well, before we move on to that, you also have the massive die-off of coral reefs, right?
Yes.
So we have, and part of Project 2025 is a war against science. They want to close down the government agencies that do scientific research that advise policy. And that's true with the environment, but it's also true with the Department of Agriculture, which has scientific research on food safety, right? So they would like to eliminate those research capacities as well. So if you want to open the door to salmonella attacks, that's in the plan. They also want to cripple the Center for Disease Control's ability to advise Americans on measures to take for public health. So they don't want them to be able to advise children in schools to be vaccinated, right? They want to remove that capacity from the CDC. We've already got outbreaks of measles in 17 different states. You have a death rate among children of 1 to 2 per 1,000. And if they really continue on this campaign, you will have an elevation of diseases like polio and tuberculosis and smallpox that we thought we'd eliminated a long time ago. So this is drastic.
Yeah, and a lot of people may not know really about TB, tuberculosis, that polio is some sort of historical reference that might have affected FDR. You've seen pictures of FDR, the president, in a wheelchair 100% of the time, or in a chair 100% of the time, not jogging like Bill Clinton. No, he had polio. If that comes back, and we are seeing emergences of that, we're seeing ticks carrying certain diseases that we thought had been solved. And all of this, all you have to do is sow doubt in people. That's all you have to do is say, well, we just don't know what's in it. Good enough for me. Just say no to that. Like Nancy Reagan, hold a glass of champagne and a cigarette in the other one and say, just say no to drugs. But don't use critical thinking and notice that she's holding booze and a cigarette while saying no to drugs. And this is where critical thinking comes in. I think this is where your expertise helps, is that we are susceptible to grown-ups, anyone in power and authority, especially in a government sense, who tells us to put bleach up our rear end because, well, maybe COVID is real, maybe it's not, but you got to treat yourself. And people did it. They actually did it because they were told officially, keyword, officially, that this is what you're supposed to do. And that's why it coming out of the White House is particularly effective, I think.
These organizations have their own radio stations, their own talk radio stations, their own fundamentalist Christian radio stations, as well as their own cable television operations reaching millions of people, as well as this massive social media platform network. So what they're doing is going to states that have newspapers that have closed down, who's had public radio stations with a weak signal, and they bombard people with this information system. Now, it's not just about bleach injected. They're also telling them that ivermectin is a cure for COVID. And I personally know doctors who've had patients come into the emergency room and their dying words are, oh, the ivermectin didn't work because they didn't get the vaccines. So this is really, it's a criminal enterprise. They're killing people with information.
Let's talk for a second, Ann Nelson, about the potential challenges that are going to arise in resisting or mitigating the impacts of Project 2025. We can't just have a giant plebiscite and vote no, thumbs down, there it goes away. It doesn't work that way. We've got work ahead of us.
Well, let's put it this way. If it is the de facto Republican Party platform, that informs decisions that we will be making in a short time. People have to understand that this election is about not between two old white guys, but it's between two visions of what our government should be. Is our government something that should be informed by science? Is it something that leaves the doors open to democratic evolution, where if you have a problematic issue in government, you can vote to change it? Or do you go back to Project 2025 and say, oh, all the power is concentrated in the presidency. It's concentrated in the White House. The FBI and the Department of Justice respond directly to the president. What does that start to look like? Any student of history can tell you what it looks like.
We're going to take a pause right now. When we return, we're going to talk more with Ann Nelson, author of Shadow Network, winner of journalism's Livingston Award, served as director of the Committee to Protect Journalists, created the first curriculum in human rights reporting for Columbia University, a graduate of Yale, Guggenheim Fellow, Bellagio Fellow, and a member of the New York Institute for the Humanities and the Council on Foreign Relations. We're getting a quick upload on Project 2025 that most of us had not heard of, that is giant and sitting on the tarmac ready for takeoff. We'll continue in just a sec.
Listen while it's still legal.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Hi, this is Alfred Molina on behalf of Nation's Finest, a nonprofit dedicated to helping veterans for nearly 50 years. The COVID-19 crisis has hit homeless and low-income veterans hard. Through the VA Supportive Services for Veteran Families program, Nation's Finest can assist veterans and their families who are struggling to pay rent and other housing-related costs. To get help, visit nationsfinest.org or call 833-GOT-YOUR-6. That's 833-468-9676.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
This is Rethinking Heroes. Cary Harrison here with you. We're talking right now to Ann Nelson. She is author of Shadow Network, winner of journalism's Livingston Award, served as director of the Committee to Protect Journalists, created the first curriculum in human rights reporting for Columbia University, graduate of Yale, Guggenheim Fellow, Bellagio Fellow, member of the New York Institute for the Humanities and the Council on Foreign Relations. And Ann, we're talking about this very grim Project 2025 that really none of us had heard about. It's kind of like, what was the one, I want to say, the one in 1997 that Wolfowitz and the other neocons had written about, talking that there needed to be another Pearl Harbor in America to upset all of us morons so they could reboot it into some of the joy and love that we're having today. This is kind of like that. It's a real instrument that is very serious, and they're not kidding. I just want to make sure they're not kidding, right?
No, they've already implemented similar measures under the 2016 Trump administration. And I want to put a special word out to anybody who is listening, who is a woman or an LGBTQ person or cares about a woman or a gay person, because these people are right in the line of fire. They want such an extreme abortion policy executed across the country that it would replicate what's going on in places like Texas. Now, everybody should be looking at an AP story today that is about the women with pregnancy complications who are being left to die in the parking lots of the hospitals because the medical personnel are afraid to perform a procedure based on the state abortion law. That's what they want for the entire country. They want women's lives on the line so that they can govern when a procedure happens or when it doesn't. Another article that they have is that marriage equality is definitely on the firing line. And they also want to have employers be able to fire an employee for the identity simply of being gay, right? All civil and political rights removed from these populations. So one thing about Project 2025 is it's intentionally written to be this 900-page tome, which, you know, I actually had to read in its entirety.
Thank God for you.
I know it was, oh God. But I tried to do a public service in the Washington Spectator by writing a cliff notes of it. So I picked out 10 salient points. It's only 3 or 4 pages. And I don't expect people to read 900 pages, but if they could read my cliff notes or somebody else's cliff notes and just see what is buried in that document that they have to know about before they vote in November.
You know, the next week we have on Marissa Mick, who was famously all over the national news. She tried to get an abortion, almost died. Doctors wouldn't touch her, exactly as you're saying. Ann Nelson ended up driving from Florida to Alabama to here to there, almost died. She was supposed to be on today, but she's having issues with her reproductive system, has to go into emergency surgery, but really wants to come on next week and tell this story while she still can. It is that grave. You know, you go after women, you go after 61% of the global human population. That is, talk about suppressing freedom of movement. You know, you put people back in a cage, half the population. What a win. You've now just done half the population, except people think all you're doing is just, you know, putting women back where they belong. The ones, anyway, that follow this kind of stuff. Same thing with LGBTQ gay people. Like, does anyone actually care what someone else is doing somewhere where you don't see it? You actually don't. And if you really do, then that's another discussion we ought to have for 3 or 4 hours with your psychiatrist. Just admit it. This is a real problem because the Koch brothers don't actually care about women or gays or anything whatsoever. They just know that if they go to the lowest common denominator and touch their rancid souls and hit the fear button and the panic button and tell them that Emmanuel Goldstein from 1984 and all the other bugaboos are under the bed coming to take their rights away, that these people will react. And then they're reacting. And then you can tell them how to vote while they're at it. Well,
I wish these were people who read George Orwell because they'd be better informed. But instead, what you're getting is this hyper-religious movement that is organizing people through, you know, many Pentecostal organizations across the country. And it's extremely dangerous because one of the things that they're saying in their rhetoric in these tent meetings is that Democrats are demons, right? Literally, They're saying they're demons. And of course, when you say this to people whose organizations overlap with these militias and the Proud Boys and QAnon populations, you're setting the scene for violence in the upcoming months.
Which we've already been told by one of the candidates is absolutely the plan, and it would be a magnificent demonstration of people's passion, and this kind of mob mentality is insane. My ancestor on my mother's side, Abraham Lincoln, I'm from Illinois originally. Somebody has to be related to him somewhere, is probably vomiting and doing backflips in his grave at the notion of that party that he started, which was well intended, has become this. Like, he never could have prognosticated this level of pandemic whoopee, which we are now all experiencing. So how do we go and read your Cliff's Notes, Ann Nelson?
If you Google Ann Nelson and Washington Spectator, it shows up at the top of the queue, along with a lot of the other updates that I've written in terms of my reporting. So that's the easy way. And it just pulls out 10 points. And I promise you, there's going to be something in those 10 points that everyone will care about, whether it's environment, whether it's the civil rights for gay people, whether it's women. They're really going after practically every avenue of our society and rolling back the clock to the 19th century, as the Arizona abortion law literally is doing. So,
or in Florida, the great Governor DeSantis is making it possible for 14-year-olds to go back to work, like a Dickensian character.
It's happening, and it's happening in these laboratory states like Florida, like Texas, like my home state of Oklahoma, right? This is where they're experimenting with these laws, and they're testing them in courts where they are dealing with a number of Trump-appointed judges in the federal courts that are waving them through. And Project 2025 makes it absolutely clear that their goal is to nationalize their values so that all of us, California, New York, what have you, we're all living under their concept of a society that's run by the ultra wealthy and governed by religious conservatives who don't really like modern life.
Well, The Handmaid's Tale on Hulu is also another piece of homework that people should watch after you Google Ann Nelson and Washington Spectator and read the Cliff's Notes on Project 2025. And Nelson, you are a rock star. You are a rethought hero. I will appreciate very much your coming on today, and I hope we can revisit with you again sometime.
Thanks so much, Cary.
Ann Nelson, author of Shadow Network, winner of journalism's Livingston Award, blah, 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 Guggenheim Fellow, Bellagio Fellow. Just check her out. Google Ann Nelson, Washington Spectator. Learn more about Project 2025. Cary Harrison with you, reminding you to support everything you believe in, including us. And I look very much forward to seeing you all next week.
We are in complete control. We are
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Did you know that Riverside Recovery of Tampa embodies a holistic approach to addiction treatment? With a team of compassionate professionals dedicated to guiding people towards lasting recovery, Riverside Recovery provides a comprehensive range of evidence-based therapies, counseling, and support services. Riverside Recovery understands that every person's journey is unique. Their personalized treatment plans are crafted with care, addressing the individual needs, challenges, and aspirations of each resident. Whether someone is navigating the early stages of recovery or seeking ongoing support, Riverside Recovery stands as a steadfast partner on the path to wellness. At Riverside, recovery is not only possible, but also a transformative journey towards a brighter, healthier future. Ask folks who've been there, people who have rediscovered their inherent worth and potential. Located in the serene surroundings of Tampa, Riverside is a peaceful retreat of tranquility conducive to self-reflection and healing. Riverside Recovery believes that the journey to recovery is not about just overcoming challenges, but also about discovering your own inner strength and resilience. The dedicated staff at Riverside Recovery are your compassionate companions on the road to recovery, and they recognize that true healing encompasses the mind, body, and spirit, all while comfortably addressing the many aspects of addiction. You can learn more at rrtampa.com. That's rrtampa.com, rrtampa.com, or call 1-800-871-5440. 800-871-5440. 800-871-5440. 5440.